Hello! So today I wanted to chat about some random resources that I've stumbled upon recently-ish, that are helping me to build more realistic fantasy worlds, more realistic characters in these fantasy settings, maybe a little bit more in depth than my surface level knowledge before. So I have a book recommendation, a TV show, and a podcast that I want to let you guys know about. But what I would really love is if you would comment down below and share a resource yourself so we can all just kind of pool our knowledge together. And before I get started, I do want to let you guys know that this video is being sponsored by Skillshare, and I think I picked out 2 classes to share with y'all that kind of go into this topic well, in case you want to use the free trial, but I will talk about that later on in the video. First up, let's cover the book rec. I actually stumbled upon this while I was at the library. I was looking for other books, found this, ended up with like 9 or 10 books. So this is Floriography, an illustrated guide to the Victorian language of flowers by Jessica Rue. Given the name, it is an illustrated guide. For each flower, it has a picture of it, as well as the name, the meaning, the origin, and what it pairs with. One that I don't think I'd really heard of before or known about before was the gladiolus. So for example, the meaning is "you pierce my heart." The origin in Latin, gladius, translates to sword, hence the common nickname sword lily for this flower. Both the name and the meaning of this large and imposing blade derive from the sword-like shape of its leaves. So it pairs with yarrow to heal a broken heart, anemone and daffodil for an unrequited love, or hemlock and marigold for a friend in grief. I just think this is so cool. So as someone who is, I'm admittedly not the best with description, it helps so much to have the illustration right next to it, but also to see the illustration so that I can sort of imagine it morphing a little bit into a fantastical plant, you know, this kind of floor that I'm making up for my own worlds. And Project Death, you know, it's a desert climate, but there's this sort of oasis that is the capital. And it's a bit of a shock for Tuovi, our main character, at the difference in life that is growing there. And so I'm having to describe that as someone seeing it for the first time, and also some of it's based in our world, but some of it's completely made up and new. So anyways, this has helped a ton. I also love the vaguely like witchy element of this, as well as imagining what the origin story would be for some of mine, especially like what is the urban legend in this world. I like to think about potentially poisonings in this Project Death world. So things like hemlock. Also at the back of the book, it has different bouquets. So a bouquet for regret and sorrow, a bouquet for bitter ends, just fascinating. And for my TV show recommendation, I want to let you guys know about, it's called Forged in Fire. It is a reality TV show competition. Yes, but in the same way that like Great British Bake Off is a reality TV show competition. It airs on the History Channel, but I watch it either on Netflix or Hulu, so hopefully it's available somewhere in your country. But it's predominantly just kind of heartwarming because everyone competing is just really excited for what the other bladesmiths are making. It's very cool. Throughout this, watching this show, I've learned about different kind of quenching techniques, what to do, what not to do, different tools you can use to make blades, and the different processes that each of the bladesmiths goes through. Also the hardness of different metals. Like I'm learning through my enjoyment in watching. Especially since I have or had, more on that in the Project Death vlog, an armorer in my book. There's actually, I think in season 5, this kind of competition within the competition show where they have armorers come together to make these blades and compete as well. So that's very cool. My favorite part though is that after they go from 4 to 2 people, the 2 people can go back to their own home forges. So it's cool to just kind of see what they have when they're not in the like main studio area. But this is also when they're assigned to make the same blade, and it's usually one with a specific historical context. So kind of in the same way of imagining flowers that might be in my world, imagining what a blade would look like, or a weapon would look like in my world, and why it came to be the way it is and why it's used in this culture potentially, or different blades in my book are used in different cultures. They show a cute little animation as they explain the historical context and also point out if it's been recently used in pop culture, which is cool to see these weapons then used in, you know, video games and movies and, you know, in theory, these kind of things that I'm attempting to make my own version of. They also have a keel test. They'll test if it cuts, you know, the sharpness, the durability, how heavy it is. I don't think I'd ever really put together how important the heaviness of a sword or a swinging weapon would be potentially. They also have literally like shot a bullet at a blade before, and so you get to watch the slow-mo of the bullet just like being pierced in two by these blades. It's wild. I feel like in a lot of fantasy books and even, you know, some sci-fi stuff, there's a lot of, I don't want to say throwback careers because all of these people are working bladesmiths or other sort of careers that might use this sort of technology. But I think it's nice to have a show like this because so much of it is not currently relevant in my life, but also you don't know what you don't know kind of thing. And so each new episode, there's new weapons, there's new things to think about as I'm imagining the possibilities for my own made-up world, which is just really cool. And now I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Skillshare. I love using Skillshare to delve into hobbies that I'm trying to learn more about and also get some additional tips on freelancing and kind of creative entrepreneurship. So a couple of the classes that I think are relevant to us today. Bernadette Banner teaches hand sewing basics. Work wonders with fabric, needle, and thread. As someone who wants to get in Project Death as a seamstress. It has been very nice to get the correct terminology here and also learn a little bit more about the process, not only because I went to do it myself. I bought a bunch of cute buttons ages ago and I just haven't sewn them onto anything, as she jokes about in the course how it's something you always tell yourself you're gonna do and then like don't get around to it. So she shows you how to sew on buttons and sew on buttonholes, and while we're writing stories, while we're writing fantasy, it's important to get things as right as we possibly can for those people who already know how to do this skill. And it will pull you out of it if you don't get it right. So this has been a really nice way to learn. I'm a visual learner, so it has helped a ton, and I'm excited to make my Disney shirt and get to put on my little Winnie the Pooh. Another one I've loved is Lincoln Michelle's class, Science Fiction and Fantasy, Creating Unique and Powerful Worlds. One of the topics that he has is on world building granularity, and it's something that I hadn't really thought of concretely before. He talks about how the tone of the story that you're telling, the world building and how you share that information will differ based off of the length of the story. So shorter stories tend to go in more of like a fairy tale-esque direction. They're not digging as deeply into the world building, so it's all still there. You still need to do all of it, but how you convey that message will differ depending on like how many words you have, which of course makes sense. But as someone who would love to attempt to write shorter fantasy, I'd never really thought of it quite in that context before, so it was kind of like a light bulb moment for me. He also talks a lot about the ripple effects and kind of going there as a starting point for building your fantasy world, almost like a brainstorming activity to get you started, and just changing one thing about our world and then kind of digging deeper into what else would change, what would be the ripple effect from there. I talked a little bit about how the armor might not be an armor in the next portion of Project Death, and that was because my ripple effects weren't quite all linking up and making sense. So this is something I'm going to be playing around with a lot in the next draft. I might, however, be a bladesmith, which I'm very excited for. And the first 1,000 people to use my link, we'll leave it down below, will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So I absolutely recommend checking out these two classes along with the entire creative writing and freelance and entrepreneurship sections. And thank you once again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And for my podcast recommendation, I want to talk about the Ologies podcast by Ali Ward. My friend actually recommended this to me ages ago, and it's one that I sort of pick and choose. Sometimes I like cannot wait to press that play button, and sometimes I get around to the episodes later or skip them. I think in some respects the best episodes have been the ones that I did not expect to be phenomenal. And all of this goes back to the you don't know what you don't know kind of thing, because there are over 100 episodes and the tagline is ask smart people stupid questions. Just really digging into this very specific topic that most people might not know about. One of my favorite recent episodes was about indigenous cuisinology because it introduced me to the Indige kitchen. Other ones I've really loved in sort of the same respects as this one is like foraging ecology. So what kind of plants can you eat? Again, kind of these throwback things that aren't relevant to my life but are absolutely relevant to the situations I throw my characters into. For funny ones, they had ones all about pumpkins, which I love, but then they also have things like fearology and delving into more of like the human psyche and stuff. So anyways, there's something for everything. And no matter what, I learn something new. In fact, I usually learn a lot of something's new, and it's that constant learning that really generates new ideas and, you know, new story plots and new characters. And yes. Also, I love podcasts because I'm really big on like walking and chilling and just taking it all in as I'm taking in different surroundings. It's nice. But that's going to be it from me. Please do comment down below and leave a recommendation, whether it is a book, a TV show, well no, a book, a TV show, a podcast, a movie, a website, a location. Yes. I would love to hear about it. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you especially to some of my new patrons this month. Emmett Nahil, Vic V, Jamie Hemingway, Kat Culbertson, and Isabel Sheck. And I will see you guys all with a new video very soon. Bye.